The Forum at 8 with Xolani Gwala.
It is now 10 minutes after 8. Good morning to you. Welcome to the Forum at 8 here on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. Well, this morning, looking at the problem of football spectator behavior that's led to concerns in the recent past. People saying that we need to do something about this. And one of those people is on the line for me this morning, Gareng Matsi. He's a senior sports writer at The Star. Gareng, good morning.
Good morning, Colin.
Thank you very much for your time. Also, let me welcome on our lines Richard Maguire, editor of Kickoff Magazine. Richard, hello.
How's it?
All right. Thanks indeed for your time. Koni Mutsumi is the head of stakeholder relations and communications at the PSL. Koni, hello.
Hi, Kupolani.
Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to go to Gareng in a minute because he wrote an article about 2 weeks or so ago, just really talking broadly about some of the chaos that has been reigning at our soccer stadiums. But let me start with Richard because he has a deadline and he won't be with us for a very long time. Richard, your thoughts on this matter? Is it rearing its ugly head again?
Well, we do seem to be seeing more incidents in the last 18 months than we had seen for a couple of years. And worryingly, a lot of it seems to be with Orlando Pirates fans. I think that is particularly noted because the chairman of Pirates is the chairman of the league. And I think that makes it embarrassing aside from worrying an illegal activity. And I think the league really needs to take a firm lead in this matter, and Dr. Khoza needs to, as the chairman of both the club and the league, be setting the example. We have an act in place, the Safety at Sport and Recreational Events Act. We proved during 2010 that we can police events, but nowadays we see missiles, bottles, all the old problems that were blighting our soccer before 2010. We're seeing that kind of thing again, and we're seeing fans able to behave in ways that we hoped would not be possible anymore, with better policing and more, if you like, intelligent policing and stewardship at games. So I think what we've seen in the last few weeks, a couple of clubs, but particularly Pirates, is an early warning that we in football and the PSL as a whole need to act swiftly. Otherwise, we could be going backwards instead of forwards.
And you know, when we talk about missiles and bottles, people may say, well, I mean, what is that? That's not a big issue. Until we have another Stampede, until we have another Ellis Park, as you say, it's important to nip it in the bud, and you don't let it get bigger.
Bottles are a big issue, though. I mean, you know, we laugh at the English when they banned vuvuzelas, that plastic, you know, and we think, thank goodness we're in Africa and we're not so paranoid. But a bottle, there's a photograph going around of one of the photographers being led, dazed away from the field. He's bleeding, his head's bandaged. Next, it'll be an assistant referee. Next, it'll be a player out on the wing. You know, a bottle can hit a player. And then we'll be wringing our hands and saying, this is terrible. Let's sort it out now. You know, meant to be closed-circuit TV cameras and all those sort of things so that we can control fan behavior better. We've got a lot of improved venues where that should also facilitate better control of crowds, but we don't seem to be getting that crowd control element right. And it's not easy, but there have been things put in place. There is a national act that also directs us, and we need to respect that, do something about it now. Because, as you say, one day we have a much bigger drama. We have funerals. We all feel terrible in football again, and we say never again.
But is it a policing issue?
Have that never again.
Is it a policing issue, do you think, Richard?
It's partly a policing issue. I think it's football's issue too, and I think football, and Connie will probably say something about this. I think it's a difficult relationship to build, a working relationship with the police, that people understand their roles and you get that cooperation. We saw with Ellis Park, there was real confusion, and the policing left a lot to be desired. But within the stadium and that, it's also incumbent on the clubs, which is why they get into trouble. And I think the time for suspended sentences on clubs must be over, and really big fines need to start being paid. And part of the punishment must also be, clubs must be seen to be taking steps to ensure that within the stadiums which they play, it's less possible for that kind of crowd misbehavior. One rider, I would add, is difficult for clubs because we don't have stadium ownership in this country. So that is an added barrier to success, perhaps. But we can't use that as an excuse. We use the stadia, we pack them, we take the money from the people coming into the stadium. We owe it to the majority of fans to keep them safe. We owe it to everyone else in football, to the various stakeholders, not to have these violent incidents.
Final question for you, Richard, before I let you go. Is there a reason, do you think, that Orlando Pirates in particular and their fans in the recent past have behaved the way they have?
No, I don't know. Maybe a sociologist would like to try and explain that. Some of the so-called Pirates' bad behavior has been of the jubilation, exuberant celebration variety, which, you maybe can draw a distinction. But I don't want to put forward a reason why it has happened to be Pirates. I think at certain clubs there is a culture of fans being less tolerant more quickly with a coach or something. Sundowns is another club that has that problem. What we saw on the last weekend around Naskins, I remember that happening with coach after coach in the 90s. So with certain clubs, there are those cultures of worse behaviour, perhaps I should say, which puts more of a challenge on those clubs. But I think the other thing is also the mass. There's certain clubs that have a mass of supporters. It's a bigger crowd. It's more difficult to control. Certain elements who are going to be unruly are able to achieve that much more easily if you're sitting in an Orlando Pirates, a Kaizer Chiefs, or Mamelodi Sundowns crowd than if you're sitting in with no disrespect intended, a Wits crowd or even Morocco Swallows in Soweto. They're smaller crowds. You can control them. You can isolate the offenders more easily. So it's more difficult for the big clubs, and that's why you categorize matches differently as well in terms of what kind of policing and stewardship requirements are needed. And I can't help but think that we've just resting on our laurels a bit in football, because for a few months after the World Cup, things were going very smoothly in terms of just crowd control and just, I don't want to call it control, but just making it comfortable and safe for spectators, making the whole experience better. And then I started seeing the bottles reappearing, and then the bottles appear on the pitch. And that's already 2 years ago. I noticed that for the first time. And now we're getting a situation where there have been a few incidences in recent weeks, and we're starting to wonder if there's a bigger problem. And I think it has to be nipped in the bud.
Sure.
And the precedent is there for us.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Richard. Richard Maguire is going to go. He's the editor of Kickoff magazine, but also somebody who wrote exactly on the same issue. In fact, your article was headlined, "Garing crowd control has been lost." That's the argument you're putting forward here.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Richard. I mean, during the World Cup, we didn't see any such behavior from fans, simply because there was proper crowd control. The police were deployed everywhere. The security people were deployed among the crowd. So, aside from the World Cup final, when one fan jumped onto the pitch and ran and attempted to get to the World Cup trophy, I don't recall any incident which could have gone undetected by the security officials who were there. And even that incident itself, I remember the security people were alert, and they were able to stop that guy from touching the World Cup trophy. So we have regressed in terms of our local football, as I said in my article, because we are seeing incidences which can easily be avoided. You can preempt that something is going to happen. You know that the Sundowns have lost 2 matches going into the next match. So you need to have proper security around that, training and saying if they lose again, we know that these fans have a history of harassing coaches. So you can put those measures in place before and preempt these things. In the case of Pirates, for instance, when it happened for the first time when they won the league, you could understand it. But then it happened again when they won the Telkom knockout in Durban, and they won the league again in Durban, and it happened. So it tells us of a league which doesn't plan properly. Obviously, they are not police people, but they need to engage municipalities. When we have had one incident and then it repeats 6 months down the line, it tells of a league which fails to plan.
Connie, how do you respond then to all of these accusations? Because clearly you have facilities now that are easy to police, given the upgrade to some of the facilities, stadia that we have now compared to the period prior to 2010.
Look, I tend to agree with both gentlemen on the issue of spectator misbehavior. However, when it comes to certain celebrations, you want to let the fans express themselves from an excitement space, not from a violent space. So the one thing that I can say clearly is that prevention is our number one priority, as well as the safety of both the fans and the supporters, and the players. But what we've seen in the last, I would say, last month per se, is totally unacceptable. We strongly condemn it as a PSL, because what we're trying to also do is to create a family setup. We'd like families to come to the stadium. Now, if you've got people coming in with bottles, and our security, for that matter, are not seeing it, because they tend to hide these bottles and, make all sorts of things, just to make sure. But that, again, is not allowed. We don't allow.
Connie, there are two things. There are two things that are coming out. In fact, let me just pick up on the security issue, because if you look at the article by Nkaring, he's talking about security that is incompetent. They can't tell you where to go. They have absolutely no idea of how to control the crowd.
I would not say they're incompetent. What I would say is that perhaps the number. Remember, what we need to also define here is that when it comes to league games, we actually leave it to the clubs to run the actual match, although the PSL is there. And then when it comes to cup games, you'll see there's much bigger security there. But we don't blame our clubs. What we're saying is that right now we've actually started an engagement with the police when it comes to policing and grading matches, and so that we prevent the actual fans from being hooligans, if I may call them that. But also we do subscribe to the FIFA Fair Play Code, which one of the things that it talks about is the respect and also the observing the laws of the game, but also reject violence during the sport. So we actually are in consultation. In fact, the past week we've been quite engaged with the police, the municipalities, and in fact we're also engaging the media, because we're saying to the media, from a communication space, you need to help us spread that message that we will not tolerate this unruly behavior by fans. And it's a number of fans that do this. But also one of the measures that we're looking at is those CCTVs as well as broadcast houses, making sure that they zoom into the faces of these particular starters, because you may find that it's one person or a group of five, who just go there. But and they tend to hide because the club gets charged, and then the club gets disciplined. What happens to the fans? Now, that's the reason why we engage in the police, because we do have an act that actually allows us to work with the police and also encourage the police to arrest on the spot, because we can't just leave it and say, well, it happens in Europe. We know that there are top 10 countries in Europe that have fan hooliganism, but we do not want to be in that space in South Africa.
All right, let's open the lines here on 0891 104 208, 0891 104 208. I'll take your SMSs as well at 34701, 0891 104 208. But again, Karen, firstly, I would like to know from you whether those responses from Connie are satisfactory to you. But before you respond, Connie, the issue is... and it came through from what Richard was saying a little earlier on, that punish those teams and punish them in a way that they will ensure that it doesn't happen again in the future.
We do punish the teams, but what happens to the spectators? So obviously teams have got branches. That's their role to go and engage in their branches. But what we're then saying is that you can't hide behind your team and say, if it's a particular team that's charged and disciplined and fined, because they're not fined cheap money. It's actually generally about 250,000 rand. Excuse me. But when it comes to an unruly fan, they don't really care, because they know that nothing's going to happen to them. So what we're then saying is that you, the very person, will be named and you'll be shown. And if it means going to court and the judge bans you from coming to the stadium, that will happen. And that's what we're trying to do right now, to say we have to nip it in the bud, as Richard has said.
Karen?
Well, it's good to hear that the PSL are thinking of banning fans as well. But if we talk about the 250,000 rand fine for a club like Mamelodi Sundowns, who spend millions on players, it's nothing really. It doesn't really make a difference. And the fans will know that the club has got a billionaire bankrolling it, so he's going to pay that. And they're going to do it again next year. I mean, this incident of Johan Niskins the fans calling for him to be fired. It was not the first. We know that it happened to Honorary Michel, it happened to Todd Moloto, it happened to Gordon Nicholson at the same stadium at Lucas Moripe. So it has happened many times. I don't know how fining a club at like 200,000 rand, how that is going to stop. I would be in favor of more drastic measures against a club so that the fans can also feel the teams. If you introduce a rule to say if your club does that and repeats it in the same year, then we drop you, let's say, 3 points, 2 points. It's gonna affect the fans because they want to see their team winning something. So you have a situation whereby we are fining these clubs, but they are repeating. And as Connie said, the fans come back to do the same thing a few months down the line. So even if you arrest them, they could be released and then they can return. And it would be difficult to police fans who do these things. Okay. But for me, the biggest trouble was that on Sunday, for instance, these fans were actually in control, and there was no planning in place. They did that, they pushed the gates, and they left, they went home. Nothing happened to them. This is people who came to the stadium on a mission, and they achieved it. They caused something like that. And I can bet the PSL will charge Sundowns, but they cannot point even a single of those fans. They cannot identify them. And they were there. You should have had the situation where police were arresting these people, and then maybe they spend the night in custody, and understand that they are also throwing their lives away. Because presumably on Monday, some of them just went back to work as if everything is normal.
And went on bragging about what they had done to Johan Nishkins, of course, the coach of Sundowns. I'll take calls, 0891 104 208. Let me read some SMSs already here. Somebody says, Mzansi fans know violence and are still learning to accept a defeat, which is the main reason that many compatriots dare not attend such games, which is important, Connie, because you spoke about these being family outings. That's Papillon in Eldos. Slima says the league needs to prosecute these individuals. Too often, fans think through violence they can change coaches, and thus far they have succeeded. That's according to an SMS from Slima. William in Cape Town says soccer is indeed the beautiful game. It's just a great pity that most of the players and many of the supporters are such yobs. Let me take one or two calls here. Let me start with Lunga in Cape Town. Hello, Lunga.
Look, can they therefore consider as well banning the Dacha smoking and the Guy Fawkes people wearing the Guy Fawkes so they can see them if they do something wrong, and perhaps have some vuvuzela section of the stadium, so for those people who don't want the noise.
All right, Lunga in Cape Town will get a response for you in a minute, but let's also hear quickly from Mzwandile here in Johannesburg. Hello, Mzwandile.
I think the only way that can be done is that if the team, the supporters do that thing for the second or the third time, the team needs to play in closed doors, because this thing of saying you ban the team, you try to look for the culprits is very difficult. You don't have CCTVs at the stadiums. So the most important thing is that the team will have to play in closed doors.
That's a very interesting one. Yeah,
playing without the supporters.
Yeah, and it has happened in Europe so many times where the teams.
Because one of the things that is happening is that the people have got a problem with a certain coach. They know how to force the team to fire the coach.
All right, Mzwandile, thank you very much. It's 29 and a half minutes after 8. Let me just quickly get Connie to respond to these two suggestions. Dock points, play in empty stadiums.
Okay. I think what we need to also remember is that while football is the most supported and passionately supported, firstly from a Dacha space, we actually say yes, we need to ban that, because you can't, firstly for health reasons, and it's also illegal in this country to be smoking weed. But also the issue around Guy Fawkes, people express themselves differently when it comes to celebrations. So they go there and to demonstrate their outfits. That's something that we cannot control. However, we do, in fact, we are working on the CCTV initiative with the stadium management as well as with municipalities and the police right now, because we're saying it's very easy to zoom in to a particular person, whether you're wearing Guy Fawkes or not. Your face can be seen and you will be arrested on the spot, because it's no use we arrest you only tomorrow at your home. we're saying if it means arresting you right there, and also we actually ask other fans who are normal and who are proper football supporters to actually help us to identify these very culprits.
All right, Connie, let me ask you to hold your thoughts here, because there are these 2 points still that I would like to go back to about docking of the points and playing in empty stadiums. I would like us to discuss that a little further, but what I need to do is to take updates. Now, I'm going to start with the news also here from Rob Byrne, but you can call me on 0891 104 208. Richard, by the way, he pointed out a little earlier on that at least in the recent past, it's been Orlando Pirates fans. Are there Orlando Pirates fans out there that would like to defend their fans? What's going on there? What is it that gives Orlando Pirates fans the impunity to conduct themselves the way that Richard says they are? 0891 104 208. Let's say it's 25 to 9. We're talking about soccer spectator behavior. Clearly, lots of concerns raised by my guests, especially over the past 18 months or so, about how our fans are conducting themselves. Let's hear your thoughts then. 0891 104 208. 0891 104 208. Connie, I would really like to go back then to the points raised a little earlier on about docking of the points and also playing in empty stadiums.
I take that point. We'll actually take it to our EXCO to make a decision on that. But apparently it has been done in South Africa before, where the clubs have played behind closed doors. So it's nothing new. But, I would have to take a learning as to what was achieved out of that. And I promise to revert to the listeners about the closed door issue and the docking of points. It's a fair point, and again, because the football being so passionately supported, you need to remember what that does to a particular fan who's thinking of being unruly. But also, we need to engage in spectator education, which is really now our focus, and as well as the CCTV issue, because we're saying we cannot have these things repeated. The other thing is that, what are we saying? Are we just allowing people to just get away with it and say that it's a policing matter? Again, it's a collaboration between the media, stadium management, municipalities, and the SATS in terms of making sure that this happens. The media, firstly, we're talking to them from a communication space where we're saying, please help us. Please help us and say it's not tolerated. You know about European fans. They're very, very out of control. But it's not tolerated. So why do we want to express ourselves violently? And we can't send a message if we don't like something as fans and just say we will beat up a coach.
Okay.
It's totally inappropriate.
All right, Gareng, but let me bring you in on the playing in empty stadiums. In the past, what was the effect thereof? Was it useful at all?
Well, I actually remember covering a match. I think it was Kaizer Chiefs and Black Leopards at the old FNB Stadium, and it was played. The fans were closed out. It was only us, the media. Even TV cameras were not allowed there. But whether that would work today, I don't know, because the PSL has got commercial interest. They have obligations to sponsors. So if a match, imagine if a Pirates match is not shown on TV when they are, I think they are one of the biggest crowd pullers in terms of TV audience. So it would have a drastic effect. But then these are the measures which are required. There's no way in which you can have a situation whereby we fold arms and say, okay, our commercial interests are going to be affected. But there's no question that the PSL would consider that if a match is not on TV, and we know that these rights are worth billions, and we have true broadcasters involved, and they would not be allowed even to show the highlights. If my memory serves me well, we did not see the highlights. There was not a single TV camera there. It was only the print media were allowed there. And
all right.
Even photographers were not allowed. So,
all right, let me read some SMS, Gareng. Sorry to interrupt you, because I would like to read some SMSs, emails, and then go to the lines. Some people have been holding for a while. Zola in Neisner, for instance, says, the fans must be fined and banned. I promise you that they will feel it. That's according to Zola. Another one came through from Ola in Johannesburg. It says, policing and security is the answer here. They are never enough. We also, how many were used at the World Cup? Why do PSL games have less? That's according to Ola in Johannesburg. There's an SMS as well that says, grading games and leaving it to the teams to manage it is not helping. Violent behavior is triggered by not accepting defeat. Ban dacha smokers as well. It says an SMS not signed. There's another one from Brian Kumalo in Pietermaritzburg who says, is it legal to use a CCTV as an evidence in court when charging a supporter? The admissibility of it, that's according to Brian Kumalo, that there's an issue around that. Joe says, demote the club to the Vodacom League, suspend them for a season. That will ensure that they behave better the rest of the season. That's according to Joe. Some emails. Nareen Chamberlain from Little Brack River says, this is just an observation and I might be wrong. As a senior citizen and one who doesn't know too much about any sport but enjoys watching cricket, rugby and soccer, something that struck me is that all over the world there seems to be soccer hooliganism, but you don't seem to see this with rugby. I would have thought that with the hard and physical nature of rugby, the spectators might be more hard and physical as well, but that doesn't seem to be the case. That's an email from Nareen Chamberlain in Little Brack River. Tapelo Mutumi says, can you please ask Connie, does the PSL have a general security standard for all the teams? And what do they do if the club does not conform to the set standards, if there are any? Thank you, Tapelo. Connie?
Yes, we do. We do have a security. In fact, we've got a head of security, and we continuously work with the SAPS, but also including the outsourced companies that we deal with. So they are properly trained. But one of the things that we're considering is that, the security guards should actually face the fans rather than watching the football. Because, like in Europe, I've seen in European matches where the security guards are actually facing the fans. So they will see you right there if you are being unruly, and they will pull you out of the stadium. The other thing is that bottles are not allowed. I've gone to stadiums where I've actually used normal gates, and I've seen that they actually let you leave your drinks outside of the gate. So, it's just people find a way of cheating. It's another thing that we've observed. So, and that's why you'll find an odd bottle being thrown onto the pitch, which is obviously unsafe for anyone inside the pitch.
Garing, I'm going to ask you to come through a little later on the issue of security, but let me take one or two calls. Roy in Pretoria, good morning.
Pepet.
Hi, welcome, Roy.
I'm good, man.
Thank you.
Pepet, the lady has just touched on the things I wanted to say. Firstly, on the security, if you can check these cellular boxes coming into the stadium, it shows one thing: security is very little. I've got one problem. On the security companies they appoint, do they ever have workshops with those security companies and the teams? Because you find these security companies only taking people during the day of the match, recruiting people to be securities, and it shows as the brand PSL, they don't do workshops with security companies and the teams. That is why we're in this mess. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roy in Pretoria. Tommy is also in Pretoria. Hello, Tommy. Tommy, are you there for me?
I'm okay, Chief.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, man. You know what, Kolani, man?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the program, I thought you were a bit biased towards or against Pirates because you seem to be lashing against Pirates, whereas there are other teams, and I think Karin has alluded to the fact that Chiefs and others have also been culprits. But I wanted to talk about the issue of what Roy has just said about the professional service with regards to security at stadiums.
Yeah.
If you were to look at the game that was played over the weekend, the Sundowns game, there were about 5 security officers behind the fence, and there were like 50 fans on the other side were pushing and shoving. And clearly, I think the PSL has not invested with regards to security at these stadiums. And it's a problem that's been going on for quite some time. And I think the PSL, given the fact that they make billions and billions from the deals with the DSTV and the SABC, they should consider investing quite a substantial amount of money into security and professionalized security at stadiums.
Sure. Tommy, I thank you, but I've got to make the point that, by the way, it wasn't me at the beginning who was making the issues around Pirates. It was Mr. Maguire, Richard Maguire, who specifically said that as far as is concerned, in the recent past, it's been Orlando Pirates fans that have been guilty, if you will, of misbehavior. That was Richard Maguire a little earlier on. But I get the point, Tommy in Pretoria. Thank you. Janusz in Cape Town. Hello.
Hi. I think that generally we're going to talk about anger of the people. The politician will mention about apartheid and 400 of colonialism, but generally we can see that the behavior all over the world, calling them hooligans on the field. But I will also blame not only them. Security, of course, is very important, but also the system which we've got. The system which we've got is not the best one, because too many people from outside, not like a coach, make a decision who's going to play and how going to play the game. I played soccer professionally, so I've got a feeling what's happening there. And then a coach is blamed for failure. and when they've got not much to say about he can train the technique or whatever, but who on the field is different story.
All right, that's Janusz in Cape Town. Thank you. I'll take more calls. 0891 104 208, 0891 104 208. Garang, let's come back to the issue, and it's being raised by Roy, Tommy, and others, the issue of professional security.
Yeah, the gentleman who said some security guards are recruited a day before the match, I'm sure that's a scandal. You can't have a situation like that where people are recruited to control crowds a day before the match. I think the PSL would have to, I don't have evidence of that, but the PSL would have to really look at that and see how they can solve it. The security issue is a major problem, even around, as I said in my article, around the stadium. When you are looking for parking, as a media person, I've got a parking ticket, but there are people who are using the same route as I, and they don't have parking tickets. So you ask yourself, how did they get this far? So you need to have a situation where security can be able to say to people, you are not allowed into this area. Not have a situation where they get to the gate, as far as the gate, the last gate, and they then have to make a U-turn. This is why we had a situation, I think in July, when Chiefs and Pirates were playing at Soccer City. We had a delay of about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The match was supposed to start at 7:30, started I think 10 to 8. So that's not acceptable. It's not professional. A professional league should be able to have logistics in place and not have a situation where a match is delayed. Because we have plans as well. We have deadlines, and obviously the TV people also have space to allocate and all that. So you need to have a situation where you are in control, not the fans being in control. Because this is what's happening now because of this security, which don't know most of the time what to do, where to direct fans.
Okay, Connie, I'm going to come back to you in a minute. Let me go to Justice in Randburg, though. Justice, hello.
Hi, Kolani.
Yeah, hi, Justice.
I think we should face the elephant in the room here. We as South Africans, I mean, we're struggling. We cannot expect those security guys from the PSL to do this job of crowd management perfectly if our very own SAPS can't even do it. We've seen with the fallouts in Marikana recently and the various protests that happened, we as South Africans fail decimally when it comes to crowd control. So I think it's bigger than the PSL problem. So,
but is there a link between the two? Because some may argue that, look, if you go to the stadium, you've got to be protected. You pay your money and you want to watch a football match, and you don't want people throwing bottles or whatever it is, missiles at the stadium, or you get hurt, you've got your family and so on. Perhaps that there's no link, and we're linking two different things. Marikana is a totally different case.
Yeah, but listen, soccer or any other game, you attach your emotions to it. By no means am I condoning the behavior of people or mature people who cannot control their emotions. But we have seen that it's not only in South Africa, all over the world, it is happening. The crowd tend to be unruly, and we need skilled personnel to be able to handle that.
Okay. That's Justice in Randburg. Matome in Pretoria, in Mpumalanga, I beg your pardon. Good morning, Matome.
How are you, Kolana?
I'm very well. Thanks for your call.
Okay, it's Matome. I just want to disagree with Connie when she said the securities are trained, because at one stage I did work as a security PSL. Kolana, as long as you know somebody who recruit people there, even if you are not trained as a security officer, they take you for that day to go and work. They give you this reflector vex return PS security. Those people are clueless. They know nothing about security. They take anybody who knows. Even if you got a cousin that doesn't know anything about the security, it's looking on a construction work, that day you say, no, let's go and work as a PSL security. How do they expect people to control the crowd if they don't know nothing?
All right, that's Matome in Mpumalanga. 0891 104 208. Connie, your responses, please.
Firstly, I'm not aware of a day's recruitment. I mean, that's certainly not allowed. And, I mean, we do have a security meeting where we discuss security plans prior to the match being taking place and then it's repeated 3 hours before kickoff. So, and present there are the police, the PSL, the clubs, and the security company that we are employing. So it can't I have to check that with our security company.
Please do, because there's now, just now, a couple of seconds ago, an email that's come through from Malibongwe Gwashu in Cape Town who says, my friend who's a male nurse was always going to Athlone to work as a security during match days. It's true they are appointed at the stadium, says Malibongwe.
Okay, so I'll check that. That's a point taken, and that's totally inappropriate and unacceptable. Because, we're dealing with people's lives, but we also need to emphasize that the safety of our fans and both the players, in fact, everyone at the stadium should feel safe. And that's really the game of football. But also, coming back to the FIFA issue, you do recall that in the World Cup, FIFA actually takes control of the country. And you do know that the government signs, they agree to certain standards, but we are also saying, I agree with Nkaring, I've actually written a report which the chairman and the mayor of Johannesburg, as well as the MEC for Sports and Transport, are looking at it in terms of what can be done. Because it's not only a parking area, it's actually the people who sell the tickets. So that, again, is something that we need to look at with stadium management to say, how do you allow people to reach a certain point without having a parking ticket? Because that is prearranged. The media, they know they have already been accredited. They do have parking tickets. But then you have other dignitaries who are stuck in the middle of the road purely because somebody's selling a 20 Rand ticket and me as a driver stop there and I delay more than 200 cars behind me and it delays the match. So it's a whole repercussion that we're saying we're looking at various options because it not only starts at the beginning of the game, but it also then you have the unruly fans during the actual match or when they lose or when they don't like something that happens to them. So they don't tend to, and perhaps one of the things that we're looking at is to educate them about the FIFA Fair Play Code, which we subscribe to.
All right. Let me read some SMSs. I'm going to go to the lines as well. Why always unruly blacks? An SMS not signed. Another one says, deduct points from the team. If FIFA would let you, you will see instant change on fans' behavior. That's what they care about, I tell you. Another one from Richard in Pretoria says, yes, let the security guards face the crowds and give them cameras to photograph hooligans. There's also an SMS that says, there is much more security at rugby and cricket matches than at PSL soccer matches. I'll ask Nkaring to respond to that. Facebook posts as well. Somebody says security is a main concern. People bringing beer bottles right inside the stadium is very dangerous. What about the underperforming officials? What is the league doing about them? Action must be taken there as well. July Trevor Ngobeni says us Bucks fans will only start behaving only if clueless Palacios resigns. We are used to winning. I know that Augusto Palacios loves the name Orlando Pirates. He can go to Namibia to coach another team called Orlando Pirates and lose as much as he likes. Here we are going to misbehave until he is fired. That's July Trevor Ngobeni on Facebook. Nati is in Benoni. Hello, Nati.
Good morning, Peter. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for your call.
Yes, I think it's not a true reflection of us, the supporters. It's only few supporters who come very, very drunk. And I think the PSL need to take a blame for this because they are not taking our soccer very seriously. For an example, they only take good things about the PSL. They need to be in charge of the security, not to say the clubs are in charge of the security. The PSL need to take control and be in charge of the security. The other thing is the main reason why some of us are no longer going to the stadiums because some fans are too drunk for us. We can't go there with our families. So it's a problem. PSL need to take the whole blame and do something about it.
Fantastic. Natin Binoni, thank you. Sipho Mpumalanga, hello.
Hello, Kolan
Gunjan. Welcome, Bob.
I'm all right. Thank you, Kolan.
Sure.
Just quickly, Kolan, the first one, listening to Usisma Tome right there, what she said, which is a statement that sort of acknowledges the fact that as leadership, they have been or they are failing to even understand as to what the reasons are that we see the things that we always see at the stadium whenever security has got to come into effect and show what they've got in terms of their responsibility. It's a serious indictment on leadership to say they do not or they are not aware as yet to the fact that even some of these guys who are expected to implement security measures whenever there has to be crowd control and stuff, they are guys that they are not aware as leadership to say they come in from areas like being nurses and whatever else. That's a serious challenge. But quickly, the last one, Konani, would be to the effect that how do you link the two, as you indicated earlier on. I mean, the two, I believe they link, Konani, in a sense that the two examples that the other caller made mention of earlier on. I think they link in a sense that, Konani, all of us, including those security guys that we're talking about, who are from the very same South African society that has got this tendency of being rude and violent in most cases. And from time to time, it would even reflect on from people who are professionally qualified to do certain jobs, including police officials. So long as we continue or allow a situation wherein we become a violent society, that would go on to reflect itself in a manner that will actually have serious repercussions for our country at the end of the day. Thank you so much, Polan.
Thank you very much, Sipho in Mpumalanga. I've got time to take one or two more calls, perhaps just wrapping up with those calls on 0891 104 208. But let me tell you also there is Lakimbele, who has tweeted this morning. He says, until PSL starts docking points from guilty clubs and stop thinking that fines will hit them in their pockets and nothing will change. Also an SMS that says, it starts with seats allocation. When you buy ticket at CompuTicket, they take your name, so you should know who was sitting on which seat. And Gareng, you spoke about this matter in your article, but also you made comparisons between what happened at the rugby stadium where your friend, your family member went, compared to what happens at soccer stadium. Just quickly for me.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. People get tickets and they don't sit where they are supposed to sit, simply because the security don't know where to direct those people. That's another issue. So if my friend went to Loftus Stadium and he sat anywhere, and somebody came with a ticket number for that seat, and he said, no, you need to move. So this culture of us just buying a ticket for 40 rand and sitting, for instance, in a 150 rand area has to stop, because for big games like a derby or something, or a cup final, these ticket prices vary according to where you want to sit. So you will find that somebody who has bought a 40 rand ticket arrives early, and they will sit where somebody who's supposed to sit there for a 150 rand ticket. So that's the biggest problem, and it goes back to security. As Connie said, during the World Cup, FIFA took over because they have sponsors and they have obligations and all that. So we don't expect the PSL to take over everything in the country, but they can engage municipalities, particularly for big games. You can't have a situation whereby fans who do not have tickets come anywhere closer to the stadium without a ticket. And they are driving cars and they get there, they want to buy tickets. And that is not acceptable. Tickets have been announced to have been sold out days before, but people still drive to the stadium. Why can't they be stopped way before they approach the stadium? This is my biggest problem.
All right, let me read one email, take Tabo and wrap up. An email comes through from Roy Mkonza, who says, wrong decisions by referees sometimes incite fans. So, if we follow the international trends, why does the PSL SAFA make referee reviews committee more effective? That is, in England, other decisions are reversed. Why not here? And why have a referees review committee if it's not doing its job? That's Roy Mkonza. Let's quickly wrap up with Tabo in Krugersdorp. Hello, Tabo.
Hi, Korani. My comment is that we can't say people come to the stadium drunk, because in the stadium alcohol is being sold. And then my second point is that our PSL is like our government. They like cheap labor. You hire a cheap security company who can even tell you where to sit or help you evacuate whenever there's a crisis in the stadium. So if you get cheap labor, then you'll get nothing in return in terms of security. It's the same thing as our PSL clubs. Like, there's no service delivery. Like, if you don't get good quality football, then it's bad service to the fans who spend their time and their money to go to the stadium. Sure. So it goes both ways, to the PSL and also to our clubs. They must give us good service delivery, good security companies, and good football as well. All those things, they go together, and then we'll have a peaceful PSL league.
Okay, Tabo in Krugersdorp, thank you very much. Connie, your closing remarks for me, please.
I think, firstly, we still need to say that safety and security is of importance, but also when you play, you need to play to win, but accept defeat with dignity. And the other thing is that good football has been produced. I mean, if you look at the league since inception in this season, we've already scored in excess of over 25 goals. Now, I'm not sure if that's not good for football. There's been just concerns that we just have. Again, the safety is very important for our fans and our players.
Garen?
Yeah, I would say the PSL should go back to look at the security issue and perhaps invest more in trying to make our lives easier at the stadium and even the fans, because that's where the biggest problem is.
Okay. Well, as you heard, the PSL, of course, in the form of Connie, promised to come back to us about some of the proposals that were made a little earlier on, including the docking of points, playing in empty stadiums and so on. We will be following up on these issues. They are important. We like football. We want to go to the stadiums, but we don't want to be hurt. We want to take our families there. And I suppose that's what's going to happen over the weekend as well. I wish you well over the weekend, wherever you may be, if you decide to go out and watch some football matches. By the way, there's an important match this evening, 8:45 SABC 1. Bafana Bafana up against the Brazilians. You have a fantastic weekend. I thank the team who put it all together for us. Misho Shandlale, Mabubuluka, and Nomalizo Mandela. Those are our producers. Senior producers, Lungile Mabaso and Chili Tichibase. Technical producer, Mark Prella. Forum producer Jake Mokoma, chief producer Budzilu Koto, executive producers Busi Chane and Oprosichi. Xolani Gwala will be back again for you 6 to 9 Monday here on SAFM. For now, though, it is 9 o'clock, and that means time for morning talk. Cheers. 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 Time